Hi, I'm Marc, and on this channel I talk about Brexit and UK politics. A new law aims to prevent British municipalities or universities from deciding to boycott Israel. And that goes too far, say critics. The House of Commons of the British Parliament debated a third reading on Wednesday, and they debated a bill that would prevent British municipalities and other public bodies from imposing sanctions on foreign states that have not been decided by the British government. The core of the bill, with a cumbersome title Economic Activity of Public Bodies Bill, is, as the government made clear when it was presented to Parliament in June, to prevent measures directed against Israel as part of the international BDS campaign. That means boycott, divestments and sanctions. Those would want to isolate Israel internationally because of the occupation of Palestinian territories. And the law is intended to prevent public bodies from being influenced by political or moral disapproval of foreign states when making certain economic decisions, as the text says. These responsible in communities, universities or authorities are then not allowed to take into account any considerations in decisions that could give the impression that their decision was influenced by political or moral disapproval of a particular state. The government is allowed to allow exceptions to this total ban, for example, to implement its own sanctions decisions against other countries. But a separate clause explicitly makes it clear that such exceptions cannot be specific or primarily related to Israel, the occupied Palestinian territories, or the occupied Golan Heights. The aim was to make it clear that British foreign policy is the business of the British government, as the responsible minister, that's Michael Gove, already said in Parliament in June. It is also about protecting minorities, especially the Jewish community, against campaigns that harm social cohesion and promote anti-Semitism. The ruling Conservatives had promised such a law after several British communities fought in court for the right to boycott products from illegal Israeli settlements in the occupied Palestinian territories. This topic is treated very differently in other European countries. The BDS side sees this as a legitimate sanction measure, as it is directed against illegal occupation, while Israel and its supporters see it as an anti-Semitic call for a boycott, as it is directed against Jews. To date, British law has only contained a government instruction to public bodies not to impose sanctions decisions bypassing the government. The High Court in London overturned the order in 2020 after a years-long legal battle against, among others, the city councils of Leeds in northern England and Swansea in Wales. They had decided on BDS measures and were then sued. The judges pointed out the lack of a legal basis for a ban on such measures, and the government now wants to close this legal loophole. Because of the current war between Israel and Hamas, the proposal is now attracting much more attention than it did in June, when it was first introduced in Parliament. A large group of MPs have tabled an amendment that deletes the clause stating that Israel-related exceptions to the ban on boycotts are impossible. This would put Israel on a par with all other countries, argue MPs led by Conservative Kit Malthouse, a trade specialist. The amendment failed on Wednesday evening with 207 votes to 269. Regardless, the bill has met with criticism. The human rights organization Human Rights Watch, they warned that this would mean that communities or universities would no longer be allowed to take measures to benefit, for example, the Uyghur minority persecuted by China. The third reading vote, whereby the lower house passes the law and it then goes to the upper house, is still pending when I film this video. The topic is still hot because 100,000 people gathered again in the British capital to demonstrate for the rights of the Palestinians. The controversial slogan "From the river to the sea" was also chanted, and there was a much smaller rally though here in Berlin. But tens of thousands of pro-Palestinian demonstrators called for an immediate ceasefire in the Gaza war and solidarity with the Palestinians at another major protest in London, and we've seen a lot of them so far. Many of them carried banners and signs with messages showing their support for the Palestinians. The PA news agency said there were an estimated 100,000 participants in the protest, and photos indeed showed a large crowd. Videos on social media showed they are slowly moving through the center of the British capital. Larger rallies also took place in other British cities such as Manchester and Glasgow, and there were also pro-Palestinian demonstrations in several German cities here. Despite the ban, several thousand people also demonstrated in Paris. However, they were nowhere near the number of participants as in London. According to police estimates, up to 100,000 people indeed took part in the pro-Palestinian demonstration in London last Saturday. The police had previously expected that there would be such a magnitude, and they were therefore deployed with a large contingent. And there were isolated clashes with the demonstrators indeed. According to police, one man was arrested after attacking a police officer, and another was arrested because he allegedly made racist comments and death threats. It was initially unclear whether the two had taken part in the demonstration or in a counter-demonstration. According to the PA, the participants also once again shouted the controversial slogan, "From the river to the sea, Palestine will be free." You know what it means. And Home Secretary Suella Braverman criticized the slogan as anti-Semitic and said it was understood by many as a call for the destruction of Israel. And she's right there. You rarely hear me say that. The slogan refers to the territory of Israel from the Jordan River to the Mediterranean. And Foreign Minister James Cleverly urged protest participants to be aware of disinformation and manipulation. He was responding to reports that Iran was trying to inflame the mood at the rallies and thereby sow discord. It is absolutely possible to support the Palestinian population and at the same time condemn the Islamist Hamas, said Cleverly. And he's right there. I don't know what's going on with me today. The largest rally besides London was in Berlin with several thousand participants, and many carried banners condemning Israel's attacks on the Palestinian-inhabited Gaza Strip. A poster accused Israel there of genocide, which is complete bull. There was also criticism that the federal government supports Israel, and there were many Palestinian flags on display as well. Demonstrators repeatedly chanted "Viva, Viva Palestine" or "Free Palestine," and according to the police, the demonstration was registered by a private individual under the title Global South United. It started in the late afternoon at the Oranienplatz with, according to the police, around 3,000 participants and was supposed to run around 3 kilometers through the Kreuzberg district to the festival hall on the Pushkin Allee. The police were on site with a large contingent, and this also included the interpreters in order to prevent the possible spread of criminal content by participants in foreign languages, such as Arabic, as it was said. And also in Hamburg, police broke up 2 unregistered pro-Palestinian gatherings. Police say several officers were injured in attacks with bottles and stones during one of the 2 operations in the St. Georg district. And according to the current status, there are 3 injured emergency services. And one of the officers had to be treated in a hospital even. And as I said, despite the ban, thousands also gathered in Paris for a pro-Palestinian demonstration. The police estimate that around 3,000 to 4,000 people came to the starting point of the demonstration. They have been surrounded and have begun to issue fine warnings, said the Paris police prefect Laurent Nunez on French television. The demonstration absolutely did not take place as it was announced, he said, and the police prefect banned the rally because, in his opinion, it posed a threat to public order. The organizers made statements that indicated that they were possible supporters of the Islamist Palestinian terrorist organization Hamas, says Nunez. And I have to come back to Suella Braverman for a second again, because she has described pro-Palestinian demonstrations as hate marches. The right-wing conservative politician said in an interview with Sky News on Monday, "We have seen tens of thousands of people on the streets over the past weekends calling for Israel to be wiped off the map. In my opinion, there's only one way to describe these marches. They are hate marches. Police must take a zero-tolerance approach to dealing with anti-Semitism," she said. "If necessary, there will be a tightening of laws to address bad actors," as she calls it, who intentionally act below the threshold of the law, as Braverman said. The Home Secretary and Prime Minister Rishi Sunak's government had recently significantly tightened various laws on the right to demonstrate in order to enable the police to take tougher action against climate activists. Braverman did not want to judge whether the slogan "from the river to the sea," I mentioned it a lot of time, constituted a criminal offense. "It is the responsibility of the police to assess this," she says. And Braverman, like all anti-Semitism experts, had previously described the saying as tantamount to a demand for the annihilation of Israel. A spokesman for Prime Minister Rishi Sunak also did not want to commit to the legal assessment, but emphasized that the saying was deeply offensive to many people. And that was one video where I had to agree a lot with the British government, which doesn't happen so often recently. But nevertheless, there's another one right here in the end screen. I'll see you there. I'll be back.